Hello everyone, Michael Shainblum here. 2020, interesting year. Probably not the year most of us hoped for, and certainly not an easy year for anyone. It was a year that I think taught me a lot about my photography and taught me an important lesson. So in this video, I'm going to talk about that a little bit and also share my favorite 10 images from the year. If you've been following some of my vlogs over the year, you may have seen some of these images. There's a few new ones as well. So of course, this year started like any other year, a lot of workshops planned out and a lot of travel trips planned out to different places I had been meaning to go pretty quickly. Within about a week, all of that got canceled. And, once San Francisco was the first city in the U.S. to go into the shelter in place, I pretty much completely stopped taking photographs. So with the stress of the year, I kind of went into a pretty big creative rut. I went into that creative burnout. I'm actually going to have a video on creative burnout here soon. But I stopped taking pictures for quite a while. I was on this photographic hiatus, I guess. And I felt uninspired. I didn't feel like I wanted to go take pictures. And it wasn't until a few months into 2020 that I started hiking around again. And I started seeing things pop up in my head, different ideas, new concepts. And I started to gain this appreciation for San Francisco and my home, an appreciation that I felt like was lost with the amount of travel I was doing previously. I felt like I was taking my home for granted. And it's certainly not a mistake I'm going to make again, because I've taken some of my favorite images of San Francisco this year. Some images I feel like are unique and tell a better story than what I had captured before. So I was really focusing in on a lot of details, finding little unique elements of the landscape that I hadn't really seen before, and really just allowing my creativity to make the photograph interesting rather than just the grandeur of the spot or the location. So I'd like to show you some of these images. Starting off with one of my first images, this is actually of the Golden Gate Bridge. And I had a lot of fun composing some of these lampposts on the bridge, focusing in on these lampposts in the fog, these nice pastel colors with the fog in the background and those reddish tones. The vertical lines here were really beautiful. This is almost more of an architectural photograph than a landscape one, kind of more fine art, but this ended up being one of my favorite images of the Golden Gate Bridge, and I've been shooting the bridge for many years in the fog, from different angles, and this ended up being one of my favorites. This was with the 70-200 lens at about 200 millimeters, and for this photograph, I'm actually standing directly on the bridge for this one. All right, so photograph number 2. This was actually one of my first outings taking photographs after the pandemic started. And if you watched it, it was my Mount Tam hiking vlog. It was the first vlog I was actually proud of in 2020. And I really loved the way this image came out. It took me a little while even to remember how to work my camera, because it'd been 2 or 3 months really since I had pulled out the camera and taken photographs. And this was one of my first images from that. And I actually got a time lapse here as well, if you remember. And it was just a really special moment. It was one of those moments that got me re-inspired to go out, explore more, take more pictures, and have fun, which is really the reason I got started with this in the first place. This is again taken with a telephoto lens. I believe I was at maybe 100 millimeters for this one. But I love that lone tree on the cliff with the fog kind of flowing around. And this one's actually a quick shutter speed. I could have gone with a long exposure for this one, but I felt like the texture in the fog was actually a nice addition. I took some long exposures, and the way the fog was smoothed out in the long exposures, I ended up really liking the texture a lot more. All right, image number 3. This is actually one of my first images of 2020. This is taken at the Out of Yosemite conference, which I have the t-shirt on. I got to teach with a lot of really incredible photographers, and it was one of the only times in 2020 I was able to meet up with other photographers. So I think this was in January or February that this happened. But this is a telephoto shot of Yosemite Falls with a rainbow, some early morning light. This rainbow, you can see it from certain angles of the falls. This is such a special moment, and I really thought back to the experience of being at Out of Yosemite and teaching and just having a lot of fun. That really elevated this photograph the more the year went on. I kept going back to this image and thinking about that experience that I had, and I made a few prints of this image, and I just really like the way they came out with all the different colors and these little trees down at the bottom of the ridge. But definitely a fun one. Definitely a fun one. So this is actually an image from my Utah vlog, which is the only time I left California in 2020, and this was around the time people were shooting fall colors. I had a lot of fun shooting this photograph of these pronghorn antelope outside of Factory Butte. It was just a really fun surprise, and I think it was my first morning out after driving from California into Utah. And certainly unexpected, which is the case with a lot of photography. I mean, I plan things out and try and, plan out compositions that I want to shoot, but a lot of my favorite images come from just spontaneous surprises, and that's definitely what happened here. Here's one more image from my Utah vlog, again focusing on details, patterns, shapes, and colors. This was my goal during the trip going to this location is I really wanted fall color in front of a butte. I thought the color contrasts would match really well. Now, I had no idea I was going to find these horizontal lines, these horizontal pastel lines to focus on, with the red going to the green, the yellow, and then the blue of the butte on top. I just knew I wanted some, yellow tones in front of the bluish buttes or something like that. So this again ended up being a really nice surprise, and I worked this composition for quite a while trying to find the exact position that would look really nice in front of this butte. But this definitely ended up becoming one of my favorites, if not my favorite image of 2020. All right, going to something a little bit different. This is a wide-angle panorama. Thought I would throw in something a little bit different than the closer-up detail shots. This one I do like from a compositional standpoint, but it really was the moment and the experience that made this one for me. Because if you remember from this vlog, I almost gave up a number of times during the shoot. I was hiking around all day. I just couldn't find the right spot. I couldn't get above the fog. And it wasn't until the very last moment, right after the sun had already set, that I found this spot. And I was able to get just enough above the fog, find a brand new angle that I've never seen before of this waterfall pouring down. It was just really special. I mean, this was a fun one. I spent a lot of time shooting this composition and some time lapses, and it ended up being one of my favorite videos of the year, not just images. I mean, that video, I think it's my featured video right now on the page, because it, I took a lot of time to make that one and really make the music work with the hiking. And it was kind of one of those never give up moments. Like, you're about ready to give up, and it would have been a terrible thing if I had given up before getting this shot. So really fun one. I went with a long exposure here just to really smooth out that fog, and I had to do some exposure blending to really bring in the dynamic range of the city lights in the background. All right, if you've been following the channel, you might be familiar with this composition right here, because I shot it a number of times and it was featured in 2 of my vlogs. At first, I was shooting this with some kind of, diffused light, just simple diffused sunset light, and I felt like the composition was too messy, and I kept going back here. I actually went back to the spot 10 times and I was able to get this really foggy atmosphere during one of my vlogs, which again ended up being one of my favorites, where I was just exploring the neighborhood, going around the Presidio, looking for different trees and patterns in the fog. I was really happy with the way this image came out. I loved that really eerie atmosphere that was created by the fog. Almost looks like something out of a fairy tale. This image wasn't spontaneous. This was the opposite of some of those spontaneous images. This one took a lot of planning, just a lot of revisiting that location, looking for the right conditions, planning out to get the right atmosphere here. So I'm proud of the way this one came out with just how much work went into it. But yeah, really fun one. And actually, the next image, which was taken on the same day, is this one right here. Again, taken in my neighborhood in the Presidio, not far from the Golden Gate Bridge. Beautiful foggy morning. So this vlog was actually captured during the wildfires, which, if you had to deal with it, it was pretty bad this year. The fog rushed in this morning, early morning, and it ended up cleaning up the air a bit. It gave just enough cleanliness to be able to go out and take some pictures. And so this is one of the only days I was able to really go out and shoot during the wildfire season. Ended up getting this shot about a mile from my house up the road. And I just loved the patterns of the trees here, kind of making those wave forms. And I'm really proud with the way this one ended up coming out. Right before the pandemic started, I was able to take one more trip to Yosemite after a fresh snowstorm. I have a vlog that's probably going to come out in the next few months about that, but I have 2 images from that outing, because the way the atmosphere was just pouring through the valley made for some really beautiful telephoto shots. So I pretty much stuck to the telephoto lens for that shoot, the 100 to 400, and just kind of picking off shots of the fog rushing over the cliffs with the different lighting changes, the trees just caked in snow. It was really incredible. This was one of my favorite moments. I love the layers here with the cliff on the right side, the one framed in the middle, and then you can see a little bit of that cliff that's kind of basking in the warm glow on the top left. Just a really fun moment. I brought out a lot of that contrast in post through Lightroom, just kind of bring up the contrast, bring up the warmth a bit to bring in some of that drama. But this was a really, really fun moment. Ended up being one of my favorite shots of the year. And of course, during that same day, I also shot this photograph. And I was focused on this cliff face for quite a while. Every second it was changing, creating a different pattern to focus on. And I finally got the right moment where the fog was swirling around the cliff, and this portion of the cliff was the only portion visible. And I just love the colors here, the contrast, the little bit of light coming from the right side. Just another really fun moment with the telephoto lens, another detail. What I love about these 2 images is it's uncertain if it's Yosemite National Park. I mean, it could have been really anywhere. It could have been somewhere in the Alps, but that really was the theme of this year for me, focusing on the details, the patterns, the shapes, relying on the creativity to go to places that I've been many times before over the years and create something different, create something new. I certainly learned a lot about myself and my photography during 2020. I know it was difficult for many of you, and I'm sorry for any of you who had a really difficult year. But yeah, I look forward to 2021 and I'm curious what it has to offer. Thanks so much, everyone, for watching. Take care, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.